Hey, welcome back to the Butterfly Empire. It is me, your Butterfly Queen, and today we are covering the death of JonBenét Ramsey. She was born August 6, 1990, all the way to December 25th, 1996. She was an American child beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. A long handwritten ransom note was found in her home. Her father, John, found this girl's body in the basement of their house about 7 hours after she went reporting missing. She had sustained a broken skull from a blow to the head and had been strangled. A garrote was found tied around her neck. For all y'all that's wondering what a garrote is a weapon used usually a handhold, ligature of a chain, rope, rope, scarf, wire, or fishing line used to strangle a person. They tighten it and keep twisting it and keep twisting it and keep twisting it until it's so tight around their neck, which strangles them. The autopsy report stated that JonBenét's official cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation associated with cranial-cerebral trauma. Her death was ruled a homicide. The case generated nationwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsey, herself a former beauty queen, had entered JonBenét into a series of child beauty pageants. The crime is still unsolved and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department.
Murdered child in history. And for 10 years, the question of who killed JonBenét Ramsey, the 6-year-old child beauty queen, has remained unanswered. But tonight, law enforcement officials in Thailand have arrested a man following months of a complex investigation. The suspect is John Mark Carr, a 41-year-old former elementary school teacher who's been previously charged in California for possession of child pornography. In a few minutes, my colleague Barbara Walters will talk with JonBenét Ramsey's father, John. But first, a look at how this case has developed until now. For 10 long years, John and Patsy Ramsey declared over and over they were innocent in the murder of their daughter.
I did not have anything to do with it. I love that child with my whole of my heart and soul.
To those of you who may want to ask, let me address it very directly. I did not kill my daughter, JonBenét.
But all the Ramseys' denials did nothing to put out the raging fire of media suspicion that consumed them for a decade. Now, just weeks after Patsy Ramsey's death from ovarian cancer, it appears that part of the Ramsey family nightmare may be over. It began the day after Christmas, 1996, on a quiet street in Boulder, Colorado. Just before 6 in the morning, Patsy Ramsey made a frantic 911 call after finding a ransom note in her kitchen and her daughter missing.
The Boulder police initially suspected that the same ransom note had been written by Patsy, and that the note and appearance of JonBenét's body had been staged by her parents in order to cover up the murder. In 1998, the police and district attorney both said that JonBenét's brother, Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of her death, was not a suspect. JonBenét's parents gave several televised interviews, but resisted police questioning, except on their own terms. In October 2013, unsealed court documents revealed that a 1999 grand jury had recommended filing charges against the Ramseys, permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. John and Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime of murder in the first degree and child abuse resulting in death. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to pursue a successful indictment. In 2002, the DA's successor took over investigation of the case from the police and primarily pursued the theory that the intruder, we'll talk about that later, had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA that was taken from the victim's clothes was found to belong to an unknown male. Each of the family's DNA had been excluded from this match. DNA sent the Ramseys a letter apologizing in 2008, declaring the family completely cleared by the DNA results. Others included former Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner, disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, characterizing the DNA as a small piece of evidence that was not proven to have any connection to the crime. In 2009, in February, the Boulder police took the case back from the DA and reopened the investigation. National and internal media coverage of the case forced on JonBenét's brief beauty pageant career, as well as her parents' wealth and the unusual evidence found in the case. Media reports questioned how the police handled the investigation. Ramsey family members and their friends have filed defamation suits against several media organizations.
What's going on? 15th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We are kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old.
Police descended on the Ramsey home, but they had little experience with major investigations, and in their clumsiness, tainted the crime scene. Then, in the early afternoon, John Ramsey searched his house once more, and behind a bolted door in the basement, found the body of his little girl. He recalled that moment in an interview with ABC's Barbara Walters in 2000.
I saw her lying on the floor with a white blanket. She was lying on a white blanket. Her hands were tied above her head. She had tape over her mouth. Her eyes were closed. I immediately knelt down over her, felt her cheek, took the tape off immediately off her mouth. I tried to untie the cord that was around her arms.
JonBenét Ramsey had been strangled, her skull smashed, and she had been sexually assaulted. John Ramsey carried her upstairs and laid her under the Christmas tree.
Okay, life and interment. JonBenét Ramsey was born, we already know this, but she was born in Atlanta, Georgia, the younger of two children of Patricia Patsy Ramsey, who was born 1956, died 2006, and JonBenét Ramsey, born 1943. She had an older brother named Burke, born 1987. JonBenét's first name combines her father's first and middle names, JonBenét, of course, and her mother's first name was used as her middle name. She was enrolled in kindergarten at High Peaks Elementary School in Boulder, Colorado. JonBenét's body was found on December 26, 1996, in her family's Boulder residence. She was buried in Marietta, Georgia, December 31st. JonBenét was interred next to her half-sister, Elizabeth Posh Ramsey, who had died in a car crash nearly 5 years ago, earlier at age 22. Okay, the parents. John Ramsey was a businessman who was a president of SS Graphics, a computer software company that later became a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. His first marriage ended in divorce in 1978. John's two surviving adult children, a son and a daughter, lived elsewhere. In 1991, John had moved with his second wife and family to Boulder, where Access Graphics headquarters was located. Patsy Ramsey entered JonBenét in various child beauty pageants in Boulder, where she won the titles of America's Royal Miss, Little Miss Charlevoix, Little Miss Colorado, Colorado State All-Star Kids Cover Girl, and National Tiny Miss Beauty. JonBenét's an active role in child beauty pageants. Patsy reported pageant mother behavioral were reported by the media after the murder. In the summer of 1997, approximately 6 months after JonBenét's death, the Ramseys moved to a new home in Atlanta after a summer at their vacation retreat in Charlevoix, Michigan. Patsy died of ovarian cancer at age 49, 2006. She was in tear next to her. She was extremely dear to her daughter. Pretty much, yeah, so. My opinion, they just got tired of the girls and all this constant need and money and doing all this. So they killed her, pretty much. This is my opinion, though. And then they went on vacation. Nothing happened. And they moved. And then she died. Moving on.
He said she's dead. And nothing felt real. It felt like it was, my life was in slow motion and this was not really happening. I knelt down over her and just laid my body on her body and my cheek against her cheek, and it was cold. And I just kept saying, no, ask God. Ask God to raise her.
Authorities in Boulder quickly zeroed in on the Ramseys as suspects, describing JonBenét's parents as being under an umbrella of suspicion. There was a rambling 3-page ransom note that some investigators were convinced was written by Patsy Ramsey.
JonBenet is God.
And then there was the fact that JonBenet competed in child beauty pageants, a choice made by the Ramseys that seemed to prejudice many people against them. But all the investigations never found any real evidence incriminating the Ramseys. And in 2003, a federal judge declared that the evidence suggested an intruder had killed JonBenet.
We do not have sufficient evidence to warrant the filing of charges against anyone who has been investigated at this time.
Today, the family's longtime lawyer and advocate, Lynn Wood, spoke of their calm fury of suspicion.
John and Patsy Ramsey have never designed to stand their feelings, felt that they needed to be vindicated. I mean, they have known from day one that they were not involved in the brutal murder of their daughter.
Patsy Ramsey died on June 24th this year. In her interview with Barbara Walters, she looked forward to being reunited with her little girl.
If it weren't for our faith, there would be no hope of ever seeing JonBenet again. But we know that we will see her again in heaven.
You think that JonBenet is in a better place?
I would have liked to think that my arms were the best place for JonBenet to be. But she's in a place where I hope to be one day. I know I'll be there.
And so tonight, a big break in this case. My colleague Barbara Walters is with us tonight. She knows this case and this family so well, and as we just saw, she interviewed JonBenet's parents, Patsy and John Ramsey, when they themselves were considered suspects in this case.
Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represents a foreign factor. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in 20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attachment with the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I will advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an early delivery of the money. And hence, an earlier pickup of your daughter. Any devastation in my instruction will result in immediate evacuation of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do use pituitary I'll let y'all know this is very horrible handwriting. So watch over your daughter. Do not particularly like you. Here we are. so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is any way marked or tampered with, she dies. It will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions. And you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant surveillance, as well as the authorities. Do not try to grow and brain John. You are not the only. Can't read that part. So don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate this, John. Use a good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you. Now then, John. Victory, SBTC.
Back now with my colleague Barbara Walters on the night of what appears to be a huge break in the 10-year-old murder case of JonBenét Ramsey. Barbara, when we spoke earlier tonight and I asked you to come on, you said something that struck me. You said, I always knew that they hadn't done this. Why?
Well, you know, you can't say publicly, you know, you or I or any journalist, you don't give your opinions. When I did that interview with them, this was a couple who loved that child so much. There had been absolutely no history of any kind of violence. And, you know, I hate to keep saying it was a gut. The thought was that Mrs. Ramsey had done it and that John Ramsey had covered up for her. But they were such decent people. The love for the child was so apparent. And the motive, what people said was that JonBenét had wet herself. It was Christmas night, I think. They'd come home, she'd wet her bed. The mother was so furious that she smacked her, the child hit her head, and the mother was upset and so strangled her. That just seemed to me so bizarre. On the other hand, who got in there? How did he get in there? But I never felt that they were guilty. So when I heard this tonight, I thought, at last.
On the cameras, before the cameras, what sustained them? What drove them?
Well, first of all, you know, John Ramsey's a stoic man, even listening to him tonight. They didn't carry on, and that was maybe one of the things that made me feel perhaps that they weren't guilty. They didn't milk it. They didn't cry. Remember also they had been interrogated, Terry, again and again and again. They never changed their story. Even their son had been interrogated. I think that they were just, maybe exhausted by it, but they were not people who were overly demonstrative, and that worked against them.
All right, Barbara Walters, thanks very much for some more great reporting on this case. And there'll be much more on this case tomorrow morning on Good Morning America and always on ABC News Radio, abcnews.com. One final note, in 1996, there were 804 children murdered in America. For whatever reason, this is the one we remember. Think of the others. We'll take a break when we...
According to the statements that Patsy gave authorities on December 26, 1996, she realized that her daughter was missing after she found a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the kitchen staircase at the Ransom family Boulder residence. The note demanded $118,000, which is equivalent to $194,714 in 2020. John pointed out to the police, first on the scene, that the amount was nearly identical to his Christmas bonus the prior year, which suggested that someone who would have access to the information would be involved in the crime. Investigators looked at several theories behind the dollar amount demand, considering employees at Access Graphics who may have known the amount of John's prior bonus. They also considered the possibility that the ransom demand was a reference to Psalm 118 and spoke to religious sources to demand possible relevance, which was, give thanks unto the Lord for he is good, because his mercy endureth forever. The ransom note was unusually long. The FBI told the police that it was very unusual for such a note to be written at the crime scene. The police believed that the note was staged because it did not have any fingerprints except for Patsy's and authorities who had handled it, and because it was included as an unusual use of exclamation marks, initialism. The note and the practice draft were written with a pen and a notepad from the Ramsey home. According to the CBI report, there are indicators that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey. However, the evidence fell short of the definitive conclusion. Michael Baden, a board-certificate forensic pathologist who had consulted with both sides of the case, said that he had never seen a note like this in 60 years' experience and that he did not think it was written by an outside stranger. A federal court ruled it highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the note, citing 6 certificate handwriting experts. The court bemoaned the existence of self-proclaimed experts within credentials, trying to wrangle their way into the case by accusing Patsy without significant basis. In my defense, I can make my handwriting look in whatever way possible that I want it to look like. Okay? I make mine cursive and regular, okay? So I can make it look any which way possible. There's no distinct way that I do it besides my signature.
JonBenét Ramsey murder case solved. So, with this right here, I think I have the evidence to prove that Larry and Ivan are the only two. So, where you'll see on here, you can see that for Larry, he has characteristics in his writing like a small slant to the right, the G and F are unique, there's big spacing in the sentences, the R's and the E's are usually connected, and the T's you'll see right here that they curve at the bottom. Along with Ivan, it's pretty similar. And on the other two, you'll see they have little to no similarities with Ivan or Larry. This one is definitely not. You can tell right off the bat, it's not similar whatsoever. And for Jack, a lot of his lettering is pretty unique, which is different from the letter itself and the other two. But for the similarities, you can see for Jack and Kenny, all they have in common is bigger O's. The G is a little different, and they have very skinny spacing. The capital letters are also really big too, but for Larry and Ivan, they have the T's, the G's, and the O's. They also have the T's that curve at the bottom. The R's are mostly connected to the E's, as you can see, like right here, they're connected. And other than that, for the letter, the very end is a little bit different than the rest of the letter, but it still has the characteristics that match with Larry and Ivan, which got us to think that those are the only two liable suspects for this case. But for the author, there's not much in the note that could determine if it was a male or a female, but it was definitely not a child. The author was educated, which I can tell just based on his word choice, like how he says things like talking about the account with the bank and how he wanted it withdrawn. It would take a little bit of education to really understand how that would work. And the way that he worded everything, it's a lot of bigger words that got me to think that the author was more educated. And he refers to his group as if it's like a cult, and he denied remains of the body for proper burial. And that's pretty much it. But that was
911 and initial search for the child. The only people known to be in the house at the night of JonBenét's death are her immediate family, Patsy and John Ramsey and their son Bert. The ransom note contains specific instructions against contacting police and friends, but the Patsy telephoned the police at 5:52 a.m. She also called family and friends, 2 police officers responding to the 911 call, and who arrived at the Ramsey home within 3 minutes. They conducted a courtesy search of the house but did not find any sign of forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement and came to the door that was secured by a wooden latch. He paused for a moment in the front door but walked away without opening it. French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnapper, which the closed inside peg ruled it out. JonBenét's body was later found behind said door. With JonBenét still missing, John made arrangements to pay the ransom. A forensics team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed that the child had been kidnapped. And JonBenét's bedroom was the only room in the house that was cordoned off to preserve evidence. No precautions were taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends, victims, advocates, and Ramsey family members minister arrived at the house to show support. Victors picked up and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, possibly destroying evidence. Boulder Detective Linda arrived at about 8 a.m. with the goal of awaiting the kidnapper's instruction, but there was never any attempt at anyone claimed the money. Discovery of the body. 1 p.m. Detective asked Ramsey, John, and Fleet White, a family friend, to search the house to see if anything seems missing. They searched in the basement. John opened the latch door, which Officer French had overlooked, and found his daughter's body in one of the rooms. Why did he go through that door first? Excuse me, because he knew. Really, doggos? This is what we're doing? Jeez, don't you have a mute button like a TV? That'd be great. JonBenét's mouth was covered with duct tape. A nylon cord was found around her wrist and neck, and her torso was covered by a white blanket. John picked up the child's body and took it upstairs. That irks me so much. You're not supposed to touch the body, move the body, or even disturb its things around it. Come on. Forensic 101. When JonBenet was moved, the crime scene was further contaminated. Obviously! And critically, forensic evidence was disturbed for the returning forensic team. Each of the Ramseys provided handwriting, blood, and their hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in the preliminary interview for more than 2 hours, and Bert was also interviewed within a couple weeks following JonBenet's death. Okay, this part is when parents slipped up during interviews, which gave a little bit of hints and this, which gave it speculation.
We feel like there are at least 2 people on the face of this earth that know who did this.
Who may want to ask, let me address it very directly. I did not kill my daughter, JonBenet. There have also been innuendos that she has been or was. I can tell you those were the most hurtful innuendos to us as a family. They are totally false. JonBenet and I had a very close relationship. I will miss her dearly for the rest of my life.
I'm Patsy Ramsey, JonBenet's mother, and I'm grateful that we are finally able to meet together face to face. I'm appalled that anyone would think that John or I would be involved in such a hideous heinous crime. But let me assure you that I did not kill JonBenét. I did not have anything to do with it. I love that child with my whole of my heart and soul. Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, what do you want to say to the killer of your daughter?
We'll find you. We will find you. I have that as a sole mission for the rest of my life.
Mrs. Ramsey? Likewise, the police and investigators have assured us that this is a case which can be solved. You know, you may be eluding the authorities for a time, but God knows who you are, and we will find you.
This is the
I
lawyer.
think one of the issues that was distressing to us, and it perhaps caused some bias of opinion, is why did we bring lawyers into this process early on? And I can tell you both how that happened and why it happened. The how is that on the day after the tragedy, we were being consoled by friends and family, and a close friend of mine, who is also a practicing attorney, took me aside and said, "John, I see some things developing here that I would like to ask your permission to do some things that I think are necessary to be done." And I said, "Fine, do it." And so he retained counsel for Patsy and I. And we later learned, and really later was really the next few days, that the reason he did this is that sadly for our country, most tragedies of this nature, the killing of a child, apparently in the majority of cases are family related, and I think that's a tragic statement for our country. But because we were the parents of JonBenét, we were automatically put in the suspect pool, and so to not have knowledgeable counsel, my close friend felt would be foolish. We also at that time, as a parent, I looked at retaining of attorneys. We also brought in a couple of investigative firms, some experts that we assembled. I felt a very helpless feeling as to what can I do to help solve this case. Had it been in my power, I would have called out the National Guard, frankly. So as we looked at this group of people that we pulled together, it was not only to advise us in this process, but hopefully to assist the investigation to a closure. We spoke with the police approximately 8 hours on the 26th, another 2 hours on the 27th, have supplied them with every piece of information we have. So the impression that we haven't spoken with the police is still false. What we have, what has been delayed has been this formal interrogation of us as suspects. And frankly, we were, as you might imagine, insulted that we would be considered suspects in the death of our daughter, and felt that an interrogation of us was a waste of our time and a waste of the police's time. But because they have to do this, we're willing to do it, but not under any circumstance that was presented to us.
You know, we would like to think that we don't know anyone that we have ever met in our lives who could do such a thing to a child, you know, but they talked with us and said, please tell us names of people, you know, who may have been in your home at any time. You know, we just outpoured information just as much as we could try to remember, but you know, no one specifically came to mind. I mean, you can't imagine such a horrible thing ever happening, much less somebody that you may know.
You know, at first we were shocked and then outraged, and then we understood statistically that's a sad state of affairs. That's apparently in the majority of cases like this in our country, family members or parents are ultimately involved in So we accepted being suspects, but what concerned us, and certainly still does concern us, at least up till yesterday, is that any time spent looking at us is time that's wasted. And that in part is why we brought in an investigative team as well. An arrest is absolutely necessary in our lives for closure. Our lives cannot go on the same as they might have had JonBenét still been here. But I know how I feel today.
Does anybody else find this extremely boring?
An arrest must be made for us to go on with something.
Like, they are so fucking monotone and boring. Like, they have no empathy, no excitement, no different change in the thing to do. Like, they're bored. Like, I'm tired of answering these questions. I'm tired of dealing with this bullshit. Our daughter was dead. Can you let us, the people who murdered our daughter, go away in peace while we play it out like we have no clue what the heck's going on and who did it? Because in my opinion, this them too. That shit gets expensive. That shit gets annoying. Like, they fucking could have done it, you know? Because if you ever met a beauty child, queen, whatever, their attitude is out of the world. Do you think your child has an attitude? Imagine someone that's spoiled freaking rotten. Like, hey, I got all these crowns. I miss thing. Watch me work it. I should get my way no matter what. But I don't know. To me, it's them two that's done it. I mean, they literally said it snowed, and there was no footprints, and no way of getting in. So it's the people that were inside the house. Imagine that.
No, go back into her. Right, she was not in.
So what did the officer do?
Asked us to go into one room, put us in one room.
And he searched the house?
I don't know what he did. Don't know what he did.
Well, this is hard. When was the first time you saw your daughter? After all of this, you got the note. How long after this did you see JonBenét?
When did I find her?
Yeah.
Well, I found her later that morning.
Hours. What were you doing those hours? You thinking she's been kidnapped?
Oh, absolutely. We thought we were dealing with a kidnapping.
Fearing the worst?
Police arrived.
Absolutely. You don't know whether you're going to see your daughter in an hour, in a day, in a year, in 10 years, or never. It's a horrible feeling.
Police combed the house?
They were everywhere.
Apparently not well, but they
You
did.
look down the basement, look everywhere there is you're supposed to look. Did they put that yellow thing they put around the house with the crime scene?
No.
Never did.
No.
What are you going through at this point?
Agony.
Pure agony.
Sheer, horrified terror.
Your daughter is in the hands of a monster. You don't know where. You don't know if she's cold, if she's...
Some people ask why you didn't search the house right away. Run through the whole house right away.
We thought we were dealing with a kidnapping. We really did.
There was no sense in looking.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had, but we didn't.
In the book, you write about the suitcase in the open basement window, but the police say you never told them about it.
Oh, that's false. I told Linda Arndt that I found the window open, and I found a suitcase under the window. They have photos of this in their crime scene photos.
Crystal Lake, Illinois. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead.
Oh, my question was, why didn't you check the whole house immediately instead of waiting till later when you were asked to check the house?
I just answered that. They thought there was a kidnapping, right?
Right.
We thought we were dealing with a kidnapping. We had a ransom note. Her bed was empty. We just assumed that's what happened.
The police right away were getting the lines ready to be, tapped so that when the call came that we would be ready. And Linda Arndt was going over with John, the procedure for all of that and what would happen next. So,
The note said not to call 911, right? Which you did anyway.
You had no choice. We couldn't have sat there. The note also said, I will call you tomorrow. We didn't know if tomorrow was that day or the next day. We couldn't have waited. We'd have gone mad.
Police also say digital enhancement indicates that Burke was awake and asking questions when you called 911.
Well, some police claim they think they hear that. We would challenge the police to release that tape.
Make it all public.
Let's make it public. We'd like to hear that tape. We've never heard it. That is not our recollection of what happened that morning.
And as you said earlier,
The autopsy revealed that JonBenét had been killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. The official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with cranocerebral trauma. There was no evidence of conventional rape, although sexual assault could not be ruled out. Although no semen was found, there was evidence that there had been a vaginal injury. At the time of the autopsy, the pathologist reported that it appeared her vaginal area had been wiped with a cloth. Her death was ruled a homicide. A garrote, that weird thing that I sped you earlier, it's tied to a pipe or a stick and twisted around until it tightens around her throat. That was made from a length of a nylon cord, and the broken handle of a paintbrush was tied around JonBenét's neck and had been used to strangle her. Part of the bristle end of the paintbrush was found in the tub containing Patsy's art supplies, but the bottom third of it was never found despite extensive searching the house by the police in subsequent days. The autopsy revealed a vegetable or fruit material which may represent pineapple, which JonBenét had eaten a few hours before her death. Photographies of the home taken on the day when JonBenét's body was found show a bone of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. However, neither John nor Patsy said they remembered putting the bowl on the table or feeding pineapple to JonBenét. She's 6. Okay? My 5-year-old can go in the fridge and get food. He can even get a bowl and a spoon himself. And he's 5, so the child is and can be independent. Just gonna put that out there. Police reported that they found JonBenét's 9-year-old brother, Burke Ramsey, fingerprints on the bowl. Oh, or an older brother fed it to her. Ramsey has always said that Burke slept through the entire night until he was awakened several hours after the police arrived. Blood samples. In December 2003, forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBenét's underwear to establish a DNA profile. That DNA belonged to an unknown male person and excluded the DNA of each of the Ramseys. The DNA was submitted to the FBI's Combined DNA Index System, CODIS. A database contained more than 1.6 million DNA profiles, but the sample did not match any profile in the database. October 2016, a report said that the new forensic analyst with more sensitive techniques revealed that the original DNA contained genetic markers for 2 individuals other than JonBenét. A James Kohler, who was lead investigator for DA's office, said that there are additional traces of male DNA found on the cord and paintbrush that the Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey did not mention. That there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to the unknown individuals that were found by the test. Former FBI profiler believes that the DNA having shown up identically in several different places on multiple surfaces belonged to the killer. District Attorney Bob Grant, who was assistant to the Boulder DA's office on the case for many years, also believes that the DNA evidence is significant, saying that any resolution of the case would have to explain how the DNA showed up on several pieces of JonBenét's clothing. Forensic pathologists said trace amounts of DNA can get on places and clothing from all different non-suspicious means. There is no forensic evidence to show that this is a stranger murder.
It's the haunting last video of little JonBenét Ramsey singing "Rocking Around the Christmas Tree." The date is December 22nd, 1996, just 3 days before she was brutally murdered. She's performing at a local mall where she plays a toy saxophone and gets a warm round of applause from the shoppers. Tragically, JonBenét would be murdered at Christmas, her happiest time of the year. Christmas was magical in the Ramsey home. Here's a beaming JonBenét. The family made this elaborate video in 1994.
This is JonBenét. She's 4.
Patsy Ramsey speaks to friends and family while JonBenét plays with 2 stuffed animals.
We'd like to welcome you to our home.
Patsy then gives a tour of the house, showing off the lavish decorations with different Christmas trees in every room. And here's JonBenét's bedroom, done all in pink, with her very own Christmas tree. This is her stunning playroom.
The original built-in cabinet contains JonBenét's collection of Maude Humphrey figurines.
The playroom's Christmas tree is right out of a storybook,
complete with a collection of whimsical ornaments collected from all around the world.
JonBenét's big brother Burke and their father John recently spoke about that tragic Christmas on Dr. Phil.
Do you remember what you did that morning?
I remember peeking down, and I remember seeing like an electric train and a bike, and I was super excited.
Was JonBenét with you?
Yeah.
Did she peek too?
Yeah, I think so. I think she got a big dollhouse. We both got bikes.
JonBenét got a doll for Christmas, right?
Patsy had sent the doll company a picture of JonBenét, and they made a doll that supposedly looked like her. Patsy saw the doll lying in a box. She said it looked like JonBenét was in a coffin.
Sometime after JonBenét was put to bed on Christmas night, the Christmas magic turned into a family nightmare. John Ramsey discovered JonBenét's lifeless body in a basement storeroom. He carried her up and placed her in front of the living room Christmas tree, the one seen in this crime scene photograph. 20 years later, we are still looking for answers. Who killed JonBenét?
Experts, media commentors, and the Ramseys had identified potential suspects in the case. Boulder police identity focused almost exclusively upon John and Patsy, but by October 1997 had over 1,600 people in the index of person of interest for the case. Errors that were made in initial investigation complicated the results of the investigated and application theory. Those errors include loss and contamination of evidence, lack of experience and technical staff on the investigation, evidence shared with the Ramseys, and delayed information interviews with the parents. Louis Smith was a detective who came out of retirement early 1997 to assist the Boulder County District Attorney's Office with the case. In May 1998, he presented his findings to the Boulder Police with other staff members of the DNA office, concluding that the evidence pointed away from the Ramseys. They were unable to successfully challenge the police department's belief that the Ramseys were guilty. The DA's office sought to take control of the investigation. Due to the animosity between the police and the DA's office and the pressure to obtain a conviction, Colorado Governor Roy Romer named Michael Cain as a special prosecutor to initiate a grand jury. 2 of the lead investigators on the case had opted views. Both Lou Smith and Steve Thomas ultimately resigned. Smith became because he believed that the investigation had incompetently overlooked the intruder hypothesis, and Thomas because the DA's office had interfered with and failed to support the police investigation of the case. A grand jury was convened beginning September 15, 1998 to consider indicting the Ramseys for charges related to the case. 1999, the grand jury returned a true bill to charge the Ramseys with placing the kid in risk in a way that led her to death, with the instructing an investigation of murder. Oh my goodness, apparently my mind went stupid. The reason for this is unclear. Based on the probable cause, which police authorities have reason to obtain a warrant for the arrest of a suspect criminal or an issuing of a search warrant, blah blah blah. But standard applied in such grand jury proceedings, but Boulder County District Attorney Alex Hunter did not prosecute them because he did not believe that he could meet the higher standard of providing guilty beyond a reasonable doubt that is required for a criminal conviction. And so they had to have more than a theory. They had to have evidence and DNA and whatnot. Mayor Lacey, the next Boulder County District Attorney, took over the investigation from the police on December 26, 2002. In April 2003, she agreed with the federal judge who sat on 2002 liberal cases that evidence in the suite is more consistent than a theory. Like I just said, that an intruder murdered JonBenét, that it was with a theory that Miss Ramsey did. On July 9, 2008, the Boulder District Attorney's Office announced that as a result of newly developed DNA sampling and testing techniques, touch DNA analysis, the Ramsey family members were excluded as suspect in the case. Lacey publicly exonerated the Ramseys. On February 2, 2009, Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner announced that Stan Garnett, the new Boulder County District Attorney, would turn the case over to his agency, and that his team would resume investigating it. Garnett found that the statute of limitations for the crimes identified in the 1999 grand jury true bill had expired and did not pursue reviewing of the case against the Ramseys. October 2010, the Boulder police reopened the cold case. New interviews were conducted following a fresh inquiry by a committee that included state and federal investigators. Police were expected to use the latest DNA technology in their investigation. There was no new information gleaned from those interviews. It was reported in September 2016 that the investigation into JonBenét's death continues to be an active homicide case, per Boulder Police Chief Greg Testa. In 2015, Beckner disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, stating, "Exonerating anyone based on a small piece of evidence that has not yet been proven to even be connected to the crime scene is absurd." He also stated that the unknown DNA from the JonBenét's clothing has got to be the focus of the investigation. At this point in time, and that until one can prove otherwise, the suspect is a donator sick of the unknown DNA owner, aka. 2016, Gordon Cumbes, a former investigator for the Boulder County District Attorney's Office, also questioned total absolution of the Ramseys, stating, "We all shed DNA all the time within our skin cells. It can be a deposition anywhere at any time for various reasons, reasoning that are benign. To clear somebody just on the premises of touch DNA, especially when you have a situation where the crime scene wasn't secured at the beginning, really is a stretch." Stephen E. Pitt, a forensic psychiatrist hired by Boulder attorneys, said Lacey's public exoneration of Ramseys was a big slap in the face to Chief Beckner, and the core group of detectives who had been working on the case for years.
Just like you got hit in the stomach. Where's my child?
Hours later, she's found strangled to death.
I couldn't do anything but scream.
Keep your baby close to you.
Surreal images of the pageant star transfix the nation.
Were you a stage mother?
Probably. What's wrong with that?
No charges have ever been filed. Nobody ever convicted. Tonight, the theories, secrets, and bombshells.
Hurry. Patsy.
A CNN special report, the murder of JonBenét.
If you could say something to JonBenét now.
She knew she was loved. I told her every day I love her, and I still do with my kids when I talk to them. As a father, I'm just sorry I didn't protect her. I'm sorry.
December 26, 1996.
And that concludes it. And now it's just random theories and suspects. A family member theory that they killed her. Intruder theory. There was even a false confession. of a 41-year-old elementary school teacher. Plenty of lawsuits. And that's about it. Thank you, my lovely butterflies. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the next one. Can you tell me what you love about crime? Can you tell me what you wanna know? I can give you what you need. Do you wanna know about the murder? Who died first?
Purchase your tracks today.
I wonder if they're still alive. Do you wanna know what they did first? Now can you tell me? Now can you tell me? How do you feel about this? Is it just what we feel?